We are going to talk about a question that has really occupied the minds of so many individuals in so many disciplines. What makes us human? What does it mean to be human? And Rich, I'm going to start with you, as a biologist. What does it take?
Well, I think if we look back at our origins coming out of Africa, clearly there were animals living there that were not human. Okay? They're apes, various gorillas, all sorts of things. And so I think one of the things that really differentiates us from the bulk of the animal kingdom is the brain, and the way in which the brain dominates our lives, allows us to do things often that we shouldn't do, but nevertheless gives us some feelings for the rest of society, for what we might do to control them, to help them, or whatever. And I think this is something that is distinctly human as opposed to other animals. So for me, that is one of the things that really stands out. And one of the things I like about it is it can make us very creative. We can ask questions, we can try to find out how things work, what they work, and as a scientist, that is what I love to do.
And we got a taste of that in Svante Pääbo's lecture as well. Right. And Juichi, you were a primatologist?
Yes.
And you take another perspective, perhaps. You're working with primates. Based on that background and comments from Rich, what do you think it means to be human?
The first feature appeared in human evolution about 7 million years ago is bipedal walk. And the human brain started to increase in size about 2 million years ago. So 5 million years, our ancestor just walked bipedally with very small brain. And then, why and how human brain increase in size? That is, social brain hypothesis proposed by Robin Dunbar, a British primatologist, estimated that brain size increased with increase in group size. So that is social brain. Our brain increase the size to adapt the social complexity. So maybe about, from 2 million years ago, human ancestor increasing group size and to interact complex, social structure. So that is meaning the size. But Svante proposed that in the content of the brain in modern humans. So I don't know exactly what happened, but not size. In the contents and the direction started to evolve.
So we hear a lot now thematically about the brain and also about creative art. And Hiroshi, I would like to ask you a little bit. You think a lot about this, I think, what makes us human and what makes us so special.
My view is more extreme in some sense, right? So why we have this kind of a big brain, how we can use this big brain, right? So that is the technologies. So I really think we cannot clearly define what human is, right? But we can say that human is different from animal because we can use the technology for...
to help us there, do you think we should introduce our special guest?
Okay.
So we do have a special guest, and so I'm going to let you make the introduction to our special guest.
Okay. Well, today's I'm bringing my copy. He has my knowledge, and he can have a conversation with the student and the guest, right? And actually, I'm building a pavilion for the expo. On the Osaka Kansai Expo, I'm building a pavilion, and he will welcome you. Right?
I'm not sure can everybody see our guest? All right, well, we do have but we can talk to our special guest.
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe we might want to ask our special guest a few questions. There he is.
Well, you can.
Who are we seeing here?
May I speak?
You may.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
Could you clarify what you mean by it?
Well, who are you?
Let me see. I am Fudosan Ishiguro, a university professor and researcher. I explore human nature through humanoid robots. How can I assist you today?
Well, please explain your expert area.
Could you provide more details about the police or the export area you're assigned to? It will help me offer a near-wave response.
So, what are you doing in a university?
At my university, I conduct research on humanoid robots to explore human nature.
Okay.
My work involves understanding interactions between humans and robots, and creating robots that closely resemble humans.
Should we have any more questions?
Well, I think it's okay. Well, the people, please visit the third floor. He is waiting for you, and you can have a conversation with him.
All right, so here's your chance. How about a round of applause for our special guest? That's great.
Let's see.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, so we still haven't solved the question. We've got some insights. I mean, being human really is genetics, biology, culture, it's consciousness. Can we create that in a robot?
So,
It's open, yeah, all three of you. You might have different opinions about that question.
Right, probably. Well, I think it's a challenge, right? So, so far, I was trying to develop the very human-like robots, and then clearly the bottleneck was conversational functions. But thanks to the large language model, we could develop the, pretty good conversational functions. It's almost human-like. But however,
Almost, you said.
Almost, not perfectly. But however, we are feeling some difference between the human and the robots. That is a consciousness, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot feel the human-like consciousness through the conversation with the robots. So how we can do that? Still, this is open questions. But on the other hand, right? So, and we can enhance. I have two approaches. One is to develop the fully autonomous robot. The other is the teleoperated robots, right? Mm-hmm. So if we use that kind of technologies, and for developing the avatars, teleoperated robots, so we can enhance our abilities or the conversations, right? Mm-hmm. And if we use the technology for enhancing the human abilities, so I think we can have more, more better jobs, right? So I think that is a kind of way of human evolution. So that is the difference from an animal.
All right. He had the word almost in there, and I don't know if either of you want to comment on the idea of almost. Can these machines really be human?
I think for me, one of the things is we can certainly write programs to run machines. They can do a lot of very clever things. But can they ask good questions? Can they ask the really insightful questions that we as humans can ask when, I want to know, how does your nose work? How does your hair work? How do your fingers work? And to get into the details of all of that, is it going to be possible for robots to really take over and ask these questions and get insightful answers that are useful for us? Or is it just going to be an exercise in asking questions, getting results, but then no action afterwards? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I like the idea of curiosity, finding out how things work, and then seeing how we can use it in some productive way.
Mm. You can go ahead and respond to that, because I think that's what you were struggling with as you're developing this.
It's quite difficult, right? Human is so complicated. When we are just simulating the, some possible part by using AI, right? So, my interest is to compare the robots and humans, and try to understand what is the humanities, what is the important aspect of humans, right? So I think that this is a very interesting tool to understand humans, right? So that is my feeling.
I think it's fun, but whether you're going to understand much about us or not, that I don't know. As I say, for me, it's sort of asking questions, getting results, and then seeing where that can take you, allowing your creativity to take over and say, oh, I've made this discovery, but I could use it in this sphere that I've not even thought about before. I'm not sure that robots and AI are going to be able to take us there. Maybe I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
I think your model, your robot can approve Turing test. I don't have time to explain Turing test, but
Maybe you should explain what the Turing test is.
Okay, Turing test. If AI or robot is covered with the box and invisible, and human asks the question and robot answers the question. If human can't understand that is a robot or human itself, that is approval of Turing test. So your Android can approve the Turing test.
So, while still we need to limit the condition and the situations, right? So, and then, the most important thing is the time, how long that we're going to have a conversations, right? So if we have a longer conversation, of course, everybody can find that is not humans. But for the, very short time, and then maybe the elderly, the young children, so some, if they don't know the much knowledge about the humans, so we may cheat them, right? So
from my experience to talk with gorillas in the wild, we don't need language. Facial expression and attitude that can have some meanings, and we can understand with each other. And there is some ambiguity, but we can omit some ambiguities.
Well, that's the emotion coming through,
understand
isn't it,
it.
really?
So emotional, conversation that you Android can clear that kind of ambiguity.
Well, I think right now we are focusing on the multimodal processing, multimodal the perceptions and the representations. So that is a difference from the previous robots, right? But however, it is not so easy. So we need to develop the very sophisticated body mechanism and sensations, right? So we need to do many things, right? But
How far are we from building in consciousness and emotionality into these kinds of robots?
Well, I'm not sure, right? But I hope that we can do it within, the 20 or 30 years, right? But every year, we are improving the technologies and improving developing so many sensors, so many, the tools, right? So that some days, I believe that we can do that, but not today, right?
I have a question. If you had two robots, can they have an intelligent conversation?
Well, so
Does that? At least we can do that with three individuals, right?
Depends on the definition of intelligence, right? So for the simple conversations, but maybe it's a level of intelligence. I really think so that, right? So large language model and AI is, in some sense, they are so clever, right? Comparing with in some average knowledge and the intelligence of a human. But of course, if we compare with the top class people, right, like you, of course, when we can, they cannot. They find ideas.
I'm thinking, you have two robots. They start talking. What are they going to talk about? And are they going
somebody
to
needs to kick
go
it off.
beyond whatever was the initial thing they got
Right.
started?
My imagination is, it sounds like a kind of reinforcement learning, right? So I just remember the AlphaGo. AlphaGo is, searching. It's a kind of a random search. So if they talk forever, right, they may find some solutions, right? So that
Or
we
not.
cannot find.
I think until modern human appeared, evolution proceeded interaction based, So brain size increased, more complexity of interactions. But after the appearance of modern human, and knowledge-based intelligence developed, and with the aid of science and technology. And now many information, the evolution of information are now bringing us that's much more complexity of integration of information for decision making. So our brain cells did not respond such kind of request. So we just rely on AI or some outside our intelligence, I guess. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, when you look back and you say, well, as humans started to develop and got smarter, one of the things they did was to be creative. They, instead of being gorillas and going out and looking for, whatever food they could find,
for example.
they started farming. They realized that you could bring some of these plants in from the wild, put them in your backyard, and grow them. And I think it is these kinds of traits that, for me, define being human. Being able to adapt, being able to improve your environment, improve what's going on, and then to share that knowledge. And I think this is really crucial to being human, personally.
May I comment on that? Right. So, the AI.
So you think your robot can farm?
Well,
It's okay, go on.
right. The robot and AI is going to be a part of our partners. I mean, so today everybody using AI, and we are using a lot of robot technologies in the factory in many places, right? So and AI and the robots can enhance the human abilities, enhance our brain activities. So we need to coexist together, right? So that is the human future, I think.
Well, clearly we're not going to go back because we're here, right? And we're in a world where we're embracing more of this kind of technology. So what do you think are some of the ethical considerations that we need to take on?
Yes, of course, right? So well, and always, so when we develop the new technologies, we have two possibilities to use in good way and a bad way, right? So we need to have a more better moral to use a more powerful technologies, to use the AI and robot technologies. I don't like to use my robot technologies for the military purpose, right?
I think that the essence of humanity is still empathy, sympathy, compassion, and it's expressed by human attitude, like your android. But now, invisible things appear in many informations, and we can integrate more information into ethics or logos, and to rely on the future figures. So that is very important, but it's very difficult for us, human body, express our empathy, sympathy. That's our human body.
Well, and some of that's learned experience, but also that can be wired in our genetics. A lot of these things that make us really unique are wired in our genes. So just thinking a little bit more, we're living with these technologies. What do you think some of the ethical considerations are from your point of view as a biologist?
Well, I think for me, the ethics of all of this is who is going to control the robots? So the robot's going to control us? Are we just generating a set of autocrats? Or are they going to be there to help us? And I think I very much agree with what you're saying. Empathy, compassion. Almost all humans are compassionate. If you're a scientist, you can go anywhere in the world, meet another scientist, you've got a friend. We start talking, we can disagree about things, but we don't find it necessary to shoot one another to show who was correct. And I think this idea of being peaceful, of having empathy, of thinking good things about people is something that we really need to make sure we don't lose if we start to use AI in the wrong way. And how we do that, I don't know. But, if there's a gene for autocracy, I say we find it and eliminate it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you think the next big steps are going forward?
So transhuman. Transhuman. So I would like to ask you, Ishiguro-san, after completing your android, but it is not biological things. So what do you think in the future? Android is also physical matter, or by providing some biological component with the android?
Well, I am not specialist for the biologies, right? So probably my way is to use the AI and the robot technologies for making a kind of a copy of the humans. But the important thing is how we can define the humanities, right? Even if we don't have, the robot doesn't have any, the biological stuff, right? Robot may have a human right in some sense, right? So that it's a matter of societies. So how we can get the human rights? Always society will give a human right to the people and to the animal and to the robots, I think. Right. So, and I think it depends on the level of intelligence of humanoid robot.
Well, that theme comes up a lot, the societal experience as well, and how that feeds into this. It's certainly a big biological component, a genetic component, but a lot about how we're experiencing the world. And whether we can teach all of that to a computer would be, I think, the big question going forward.
I'm sure we can do it. The question is, will we?
We already
it can
are
be done.
working on it. How many people here use AI? Just a show of hands.
Everybody, right?
Oh, many.
Look at that. And how many people use things like ChatGTP?
Everybody.
That's right.
Right, the human totally.
You mean cheat, GTP?
Well, there's so much information out in the world that it is really a challenge to have it all. And sometimes having it quickly is a matter of life or death for some people.
Right. But the problem is with programs like ChatGPT is they are trained on data sets that are not necessarily all true. And I think one of the problems I see with AI is we need to make sure that the training sets we use contain facts. They don't contain mistruths. They don't contain incorrect information that's put out there deliberately.
Well, you said already early, asking the right question is very, very important.
Right.
And then having sort of a knowledge base to be able to ascertain whether or not the information you get back is fact correct or not.
But I mean, ChatGPT doesn't care. It just goes for whatever literature it can find and then produces an
It's
answer.
always very polite.
Yeah. 400 years ago, René Descartes has already predicted the modern world. I think, therefore I exist. And thinking agent has no body, and body itself is a material and following the physical formula. So that is modern world governed by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has no body. So in the future, if we rely heavily on AI, it is the world proposed by Descartes.
I think a lot of the whole ideas around these humanized machines is really our quest to understand what makes us unique and what makes us human. And clearly there's a lot of efforts on way to try to understand that. We heard a lot about the brain and how important our brain is. Cultural experience is really big. The ability to have a consciousness and empathy are also factors. And we were told in the opening remarks to dream big. And so we'll see where this goes. But as I see it, it's a conversation to be continued throughout the day. So thanks again to our colleagues here. And we should all think a little bit about what makes us special and unique as humans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead.